Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a story about a young woman I met recently. She was kind, she was hardworking, she was always there for everyone, the kind of person you'd describe as nice. But as she told me her story, she didn't seem happy. She felt drained, she felt unseen, she felt unheard. And as we talked, she said something that hit me. I don't know who I am anymore because I spent my whole life being who everyone else needed me to be. That hit me hard because I think so many of us, especially women, are taught that our value comes from being agreeable, from being liked, from saying yes even when we mean no. And somewhere along the way, we lose ourselves. Decide who you are. We live in a world that constantly tells us who we should be. From the moment we are born, expectations are placed upon us. How we should act, what we should believe, how we should present ourselves to the world. These expectations come from society, family, culture, and even our own insecurities. And for many women, these expectations shape them into becoming the nice girl who is always accommodating, always agreeable, always putting others before ourselves. But here's the problem. When we live according to what others expect, we lose sight of who we truly are. We end up living a life of obligation rather than purpose, of people-pleasing rather than faith-led conviction. And that is not the life you were created to live. You were designed with a unique purpose, and you cannot fulfill that purpose if you don't first decide who you are. Deciding who you are is not about choosing a label or adopting an identity that pleases the world. It's about peeling back the layers of who you've been told to be and discovering the woman you were always meant to be. It is about seeking the truth of your soul, standing firm in your values, and allowing yourself to embrace the fullness of your potential. The process of deciding who you are starts with self-awareness. This requires deep reflection, a willingness to question old beliefs, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Many of us spend years, sometimes even decades, avoiding this work because it's difficult. It's far easier to go along with what we've been told than to challenge it. But here's the truth. If you do not define yourself, the world will do it for you. And the world's definition will never be as powerful as the one God has placed inside you. To truly decide who you are, you must strip away the noise. You must ask yourself hard questions. What do I believe? Not what I was told to believe, but what resonates in my heart. What brings me joy. Not what makes others happy, but what makes my soul come alive. What are my non-negotiables? What are the values I refuse to compromise, no matter the pressure? You must also reflect on the moments in your life when you have felt the most yourself. Think about a time when you felt strong, confident, aligned with your purpose. What were you doing? Who were you with? How did you feel? Those moments are clues to who you truly are. They reveal your gifts, your passions, and the parts of you that have been buried under the expectations of others. Faith plays a critical role in this journey. When you decide who you are not just choosing an identity, you are stepping into the identity God has already placed within you. This requires trust. Trust that you were created for a reason. Trust that your voice matters. Trust that you do not have to mold yourself into someone else's version of good enough to be worthy. You were already created whole. The journey is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were always meant to be. But deciding who you are is not just a one-time event. It is a daily commitment. Every day you will be faced with choices that either reinforce your true self or pull you back into the version of yourself that pleases others. Every day you must reaffirm your commitment to being authentically you. This means that some people will not like your choices, some will be uncomfortable when you set boundaries, some will question why you are changing, That's okay. Not everyone will understand your journey, and they don't have to. What matters is that you understand it. What matters is that you choose to live in alignment with your faith and values rather than in fear of disappointing others. When you truly decide who you are, you step into your power. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. You stop living for approval and start living for purpose. You stop playing small because you realize you were never meant to be small. You were meant to shine. Set boundaries without guilt. For far too long, many women have been conditioned to believe that saying no is wrong, that setting boundaries is selfish, and that their worth is tied to how much they can give to others. This conditioning creates a cycle where women overextend themselves, prioritize everyone else's needs above their own, and feel exhausted, resentful, and unfulfilled. But the truth is, boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting your energy, your peace, and your purpose. Without them, you cannot fully step into the life you were meant to live. Setting boundaries without guilt requires a deep understanding of your own needs, values, and limits. Too often, people wait until they are completely drained before realizing they need boundaries. They push themselves past their emotional and physical limits because they're afraid of being seen as unkind or unhelpful. But when you constantly give without limits, you end up giving from an empty cup, which does not serve you or anyone else. You cannot be the best version of yourself if you are constantly depleted. One of the most important realizations about boundaries is that they are an act of self-respect. When you set boundaries, you are communicating that your time, energy, and well-being matter just as much as anyone else's. You are refusing to sacrifice your peace for the sake of pleasing others. This is not selfish, it is necessary. It is a declaration that you honor yourself enough to say, I will not allow myself to be used, drained, or manipulated. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. They worry that saying no will make them unlikable, or that others will become upset with them. But here is the truth. The people who truly love and respect you will honor your boundaries. And the ones who resist or guilt trip you for having them, those are the very people you need boundaries with. Healthy relationships, whether they are personal, professional, or spiritual, thrive on mutual respect. If someone only values you when you are available for their every need, but becomes distant or angry when you assert yourself, that is a sign that they were never valuing you. They were valuing what you could do for them. Guilt is the biggest enemy when it comes to boundaries. Many women feel guilty for saying no because they have been taught that their role is to nurture, to accommodate, and to serve. But guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. Often guilt is just an indicator that you are stepping out of an old pattern that no longer serves you. When you first start setting boundaries, guilt will show up because you are disrupting years, sometimes decades of conditioning. But just because you feel guilty does not mean you should back down. Instead, acknowledge the guilt and move forward anyway. Over time, as you reinforce your boundaries, the guilt will fade. And in its place, you will find confidence, clarity, and a sense of peace you never thought possible. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are also about saying yes to yourself. When you set a boundary, you create space for what truly matters. You create space for rest, for passion, for your faith, for your purpose. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you are saying yes to something that fills you. You are saying yes to your own growth, your own well-being, and your own calling. Boundaries also teach others how to treat you. When you accept disrespect, overwork, or emotional manipulation, you send the message that this behavior is acceptable. But when you stand firm in your boundaries, you show people that you expect and deserve respect. And the more you uphold your boundaries, the more natural it becomes. It stops being a struggle and becomes second nature, a way of honoring yourself without hesitation or explanation. There will always be people who test your boundaries, They will try to make you feel guilty, pressure you to conform, or manipulate you into going back to your old ways. But this is where standing in your faith becomes crucial. Trust that God did not create you to be walked over, to be used, or to be drained. You were created with a purpose, and you cannot fulfill that purpose if you are constantly saying yes out of obligation rather than conviction. Setting boundaries is not about being unkind. It is about being intentional. It is about ensuring that your time and energy are spent in alignment with your values and purpose. It is about recognizing that you cannot pour into others if you are running on empty. It is about stepping out of the nice girl role and into the role of a woman who knows her worth and stands in her truth. Speak your truth even when your voice shakes. One of the hardest yet most necessary things you will ever do in life is learn to speak your truth. For so many women, silence has been ingrained as a survival mechanism. From a young age, they are taught to be agreeable, to keep the peace, and to avoid saying anything that might make others uncomfortable. But the cost of silence is heavy. Every time you swallow your words, every time you hold back your thoughts, every time you pretend to agree when you really don't, you chip away at your own power. Speaking your truth is not about being loud for the sake of being heard. It is about being honest, being real, and refusing to betray yourself just to make others comfortable. It is about stepping into the person you truly are and refusing to shrink in order to fit into someone else's expectations. It is about choosing authenticity over approval. The fear of speaking up is often rooted in the fear of rejection. Many people hesitate to share their real thoughts, feelings, and convictions because they are afraid of what others will think. They worry about being judged, criticized, or dismissed. And so they stay silent, convincing themselves that it's better to go along with the crowd than to risk standing alone. But here's the truth. The more you silence yourself, the more disconnected you become from who you really are. The more you suppress your voice, the more you lose sight of your own beliefs, desires, and values, and one day you wake up realizing you don't even recognize yourself anymore. The people who change the world are not the ones who stay silent. They are the ones who dare to speak even when their voice shakes. They are the ones who understand that truth is more important than comfort. They are the ones who refuse to let fear dictate their words. When you hold back your truth out of fear, you are giving other people power over your life. You are allowing their opinions to control your voice. And the moment you start prioritizing their comfort over your own integrity, you begin living a life that isn't yours. Speaking your truth does not mean you have to be harsh, aggressive, or confrontational. It simply means you have to be honest. It means saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It means expressing your thoughts and beliefs even when they are unpopular. It means standing firm in your convictions even when others challenge them. It means refusing to water yourself down for the sake of fitting in. There will be moments when speaking your truth feels terrifying. You might feel your heart race, your palms sweat, your voice tremble. That's okay. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in spite of it. The more you practice speaking up, the stronger your voice becomes. The more you stand in your truth, the more natural it feels. What once felt impossible becomes second nature. And eventually you realize that your voice is one of your greatest strengths. Not everyone will agree with you. Not everyone will understand you. And that's okay. Your job is not to convince the world to accept your truth. It is simply to live it. The right people will respect you for it, and those who don't were never meant to be part of your journey in the first place. When you speak your truth, you attract the kind of people who align with your values and respect your voice. Faith plays a critical role in this process. When you stand in your faith, you understand that your truth is not just your own, it is part of something greater. It is not your job to please everyone. It is your job to walk in the purpose God has given you. And if that means losing the approval of some, then so be it. If that means standing alone for a moment, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, the only approval that truly matters is that of the one who created you. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And the world needs you to speak, not just for yourself, but for those who are still too afraid to do so. Because when one woman finds the courage to speak, she inspires others to do the same. And that is how real change begins. Surround yourself with people who lift you up. The people you surround yourself with shape your life more than you realize. They influence the way you think, the way you see yourself, and the way you move through the world. If you are constantly surrounded by people who drain your energy, dismiss your dreams, or belittle your growth, it becomes almost impossible to step into your true potential. But when you intentionally choose to surround yourself with people who lift you up, everything changes. For too long, many women stay in relationships, friendships, partnerships, and even family dynamics that make them feel small. They stay out of obligation, out of fear of being alone, or because they have been conditioned to believe that loyalty means tolerating disrespect. But the truth is, who you allow into your life directly impacts your ability to grow. You cannot soar if you are constantly surrounded by people who are pulling you down. The first step in surrounding yourself with people who lift you up is to become aware of the energy the people around you bring into your life. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel inspired, encouraged, and motivated? Or do you feel exhausted, discouraged, and uncertain? The right people will challenge you to be your best self, not by tearing you down, but by believing in you even when you doubt yourself. Many times we hold on to relationships that no longer serve us because of history. We tell ourselves that just because someone has been in our life for years, they deserve to stay. But time alone does not determine the value of a relationship. What truly matters is the quality of the connection. Are the people in your life supporting your growth, or are they holding you back? Are they celebrating your victories, or do they only show up when you are struggling? Are they encouraging you to step into your faith, or are they trying to keep you in a place of fear and doubt? Letting go of toxic relationships is not easy. It can be painful to walk away from people who were once close to you, but growth often requires letting go. It requires making space for better relationships, for connections that nourish your soul instead of depleting it. This does not mean you have to harbor resentment or anger. It simply means you are choosing yourself. You are choosing your peace. You are choosing to create an environment where you can thrive. At the same time, surrounding yourself with people who lift you up does not happen by accident. You have to be intentional about the kind of relationships you cultivate. Seek out people who inspire you. Look for those who share your values, who encourage your faith, and who want to see you succeed. These people might be mentors, close friends, members of your faith community, or even new connections you haven't made yet. The key is to be open to relationships that align with the person you are becoming, not just the person you have been. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you start valuing quality over quantity. It is better to have a few deep, meaningful relationships with people who uplift you than to be surrounded by a large group that drains you. True support is not about having people around all the time. It is about having the right people, the ones who genuinely want to see you grow, heal, and succeed. Faith plays a vital role in this process. When you stand in your faith, you begin to attract people who align with your purpose. You start to recognize the difference between relationships that are meant to stay and those that were only meant for a season. You stop settling for connections that make you feel unworthy, and instead you embrace relationships that reflect the love, strength, and purpose God has placed within you. The right people will remind you of your power when you forget it, They will speak life into you when you feel lost. They will encourage you to keep going when you want to give up. And most importantly, they will love you not just for who you have been, but for who you are becoming. When you surround yourself with people who lift you up, you give yourself permission to rise. Trust that God has a plan. One of the greatest struggles in life is learning to trust that God has a plan, especially when things don't go the way we expect. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to take control, to have all the answers, and to map out every step of our lives. But faith does not work that way. Faith requires surrender. It requires believing in a plan that we cannot always see, understanding that even when things feel uncertain, God is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot comprehend. Trusting God's plan does not mean that everything will be easy or that life will be free of challenges. In fact, it often means the opposite. It means walking through seasons of waiting, through moments of confusion, and through times when nothing seems to be going right. It means holding on to faith even when you don't have all the answers. It means believing that every closed door is leading you to something better, even when it feels like rejection. It means trusting that even in the storms of life, there is purpose in the pain. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to trust God's plan is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of making the wrong decision. But fear is not from God. Fear is a tool that keeps you stuck, keeps you second guessing, and keeps you from stepping into the life you were meant to live. When you let fear drive your decisions, you end up making choices based on anxiety rather than faith. You settle for less than you deserve because you are afraid of stepping into the unknown. You stay in situations that no longer serve you because you are afraid of what might happen if you let go. But when you truly trust that God has a plan, fear loses its power. You begin to understand that you are not in control. And that's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to force things to happen. Your only job is to take the next step in faith, knowing that God is guiding you. When you trust that God has a plan, you stop worrying so much about the outcome and start focusing on obedience. You stop questioning every little detail and start believing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trusting God's plan also means letting go of comparison. It is easy to look at other people's lives and wonder why things seem to be working out for them while you are still waiting. It is easy to feel like you are falling behind, like you are missing out, like you are not where you are supposed to be. But comparison is a distraction. It takes your focus off of what God is doing in your life and places it on what He is doing in someone else's. And the truth is, your journey is not meant to look like anyone else's. God's plan for your life is unique. The timing, the process, and the purpose are all different. What is meant for you will not pass you by. There will be moments when it feels like God is silent. Moments when you pray for answers and nothing seems to happen. Moments when you question whether you are really on the right path. But faith is not about seeing, it is about believing. It is about trusting that even when you cannot hear God, He is still working. Even when you cannot see the way forward, He is still leading you. Even when you feel lost, you are never truly alone. One of the most powerful things you can do is stop trying to control everything and start surrendering to God's plan. That doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means taking action with faith rather than fear. It means moving forward even when you don't have all the details. It means believing that if God put a dream in your heart, He will also provide the way to fulfill it. It means understanding that delays are not denials. And just because something hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it never will. When you trust that God has a plan, you find peace. You stop striving, you stop stressing, and you start living with the confidence that everything is happening for a reason. You begin to walk in faith rather than fear, knowing that no matter what happens, you are exactly where you are meant to be.